Over the last few weeks, we've seen unprecedented protests around the world and, of course, Australia as well. But there's a technology component to this. We're seeing a sharp rise in certain apps that people are using at protests. But then, of course, some of the technology we bring into those environments can also be a risk factor as well. To debate this, we have Rae Johnston, the technology editor for the National Indigenous Television Network, and Nic Healey, who is a technology writer and also the host of ABC Western Plains Breakfast. Nic, so particularly with those apps, what are the sorts of things that people are downloading now in really big numbers?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So obviously protected messaging apps, and I think Signal has turned out to be the big one out of this, which has been a really interesting way. I know sort of WhatsApp lost a lot of its gloss when new owners came in, of course it being part of the Facebook stable these days. And the other one that surprised me was Citizen. Now, I hadn't actually encountered that. It's a very US-centric app. It's had well over 600,000 downloads since the protests began. It's usually a community safety app, and I was surprised by the amount of people grabbing it because it only operates in 18 cities in the US at the moment, and it tends to be based around police alerts. So they've kind of flipped it on its head to kind of use it to track where police actions are taking place during the protests, which is a really inventive way of using that technology.
Another app that locally has picked up a lot as well is the Copwatch app, and this was one that was specifically designed to be used by the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community in order to engage with police in a safe and legal way. So basically the app, once you open it up, you can put down 3 emergency contacts that can be alerted with a single press of a button to let them know that you're involved in an incident with police. But it also allows you to record all of your interactions, and it's automatically uploaded to the cloud. So if anything happens to your phone, that video will still exist and you'd still be able to access it. And it also has a bunch of information that you can get to on the spot that details your rights in regards to filming police in public areas, in private areas, who owns that footage, whether or not the police can take your phone off you and demand access to it, demand that you can delete things, which they absolutely cannot, by the way.
As the protests that took place around Australia happened over the weekend, what is the risk factor, I guess, Rae, when you take your phone into an environment like that? Like, can the geographical data be taken? What's the legality around that?
We know for a fact that in the US, police can issue something called a geofence warrant. And what that means is they will contact companies like Google or Uber and just do a big sweep for any mobile phone information that was in a particular area. So basically, they just find everyone who was in the location of an event at a particular time. And these companies hand over that information. And obviously, there's massive risks with this. A lot of innocent people get swept up in it. Yeah, the advice is to make sure that your location history has been turned off, or leave your phone at home entirely, because sometimes it's really difficult to know whether or not the apps that you're using are collecting data. And we don't have a lot of information here in Australia as to whether or not police are using that locally. Usually to get information out of your phone, the police have to have a warrant to get that. And under that warrant, you can be forced to put in your passcode or to open it with your biometric data, but they can't just get into your phone and access anything in there without a warrant. And they can't claim that any footage that you have filmed is evidence for them if it's your evidence in an altercation with police. That's your evidence, not theirs. So you don't have to hand it over.
I was a bit fascinated to learn that in America, you can actually be, according to some legal professionals, protected from giving over your password to your phone, even under a warrant, because of the Fifth Amendment, not being forced to give evidence that could incriminate yourself.
Yeah, and we don't have that here.
Nothing like that at all. I was going to say the other thing that I've heard from people about why some of the advice is to leave your phone at home is, of course, if police do end up with your recordings, people whose faces aren't covered could be tracked down even if they were not wanting to be identified. So there's been a bit of concern about people uploading video footage without making sure they have the permission of everyone who's at the protest. That's obviously incredibly difficult. Many people prefer to cover their faces at protests, I think for really obvious reasons. And I know some of the concern has been about willy-nilly video uploading and what it might mean for other protesters. I think the other thing we need to remember is that, of course, all this is based, when we're talking about warrants, on the idea that your phone is locked, your phone is password protected. That has to happen. You can't be forced to give over your password without a warrant. But there is actually a legal precedent in Australia for police taking your phone without a warrant or without you being under arrest, Ghani versus Jones, which suggests that police can actually take items off you if they think they hold evidence towards solving a serious crime, even, as I said, without a warrant or without you actually being under arrest. But you can't, as I understand it, again, not a lawyer, you can't be compelled to open your phone without that warrant afterwards.
Yeah, if they believe that your phone also has been used to commit a crime, and they can seize the phone. But if you're just a regular person at an event, at a protest, filming something in public, they can't take your phone off you.
It is interesting you say that, Rae, because my reading of this Ghani versus Jones was that they can actually just take your phone if they think it has evidence of a crime.
Yeah, but then, of course, they'd have to try to gain access
Exactly.
to it.
So please,
and then they
use
need
a password,
the warrant for
lock
it.
your phone. Yeah.
So, yeah, use a password, use biometric data. Actually, there was advice going around as well to not use Face ID, just in case it's just held up to your face to unlock it. So, yeah.
All right. There is lots more of this in the podcast of Download This Show. We're also talking about socially distanced selfie technology, which is a thing that people are patenting. You can find it on wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll catch you next time.